Feeling numb isn't a failure. It's a sophisticated survival response that's overworking and under-delivering. Your brain has decided intense feeling equals threat, so it mutes the whole orchestra. Protective? Yes, but the cost is your music. Let me put it to you this way. When the stress system is overwhelmed by trauma, anxiety, or grief, it doesn't gently adjust. Sometimes it collapses into dissociation. We'll map that collapse, then walk through the grounded practices, sleep, movement, mindful attention, and specific therapies that reintroduce safe notes until the sound of your life returns. You know, there's something rather curious. The moment you feel nothing may be the moment your nervous system is shouting, "Too much." Silence here is not absence. It's the loudest signal the body can send without breaking. Why would it do that? Because there is a point on the stress curve where helpful activation tips into overload, and the body, like a sensible engineer, saves the structure before it saves the show. Here's what happens. Up to a point, arousal sharpens you, attention tightens, energy rises, you respond. Cross that threshold, and the same machinery flips modes. Fight and flight spend the battery fast. Freeze and dissociation conserve it. Think of the circuit breaker in a house. Too much current, and the breaker snaps off, not to punish you, but to keep the wires from burning. Numbness is that snap. Blunt, unsentimental, protective. Most people assume numbness means apathy, a weak will, some flaw in character. No. It's a fail-safe designed by biology. When signals threaten to flood the board, the system chooses less sensation over system failure. That isn't laziness, it's survival logic. Let me put it to you this way. In an orchestra, if the alarm horn starts blaring, feedback screaming from the brass, strings buzzing with chaos, the conductor has two choices. Let the pandemonium rip the roof or cut the sound. Mute the pit, save the building, and you can play again later. That mute feels like emptiness, yet it's an act of care toward the whole. Research backs this pattern. Under acute or chronic strain, the amygdala and the broader stress axis can tumble out of rhythm. Dissociation shows up often after trauma, and grief can push the system into shutdown to keep you functional enough to breathe and pay the next bill. It's not elegant, but it works in the short term. Another angle helps. Your laptop gets hot under load, so it throttles. Clocks fall, fans rise, performance drops. You avoid the meltdown, but you lose speed. The freeze response works the same way, protective, global, and costly. You'll also see it alongside post-traumatic symptoms, where the freeze function is part of the body's defensive set. And there's a quieter, medical version. Certain antidepressants can blunt affect as a side effect, trimming both high and low. Different paths, similar felt sense. Fewer peaks, fewer valleys. So if the system is protecting you, why does it feel like it's erasing you? Because the strategy values certainty over nuance. To the body, fewer signals mean fewer threats. It trims complexity to keep you from tipping over. Here's the first payoff. The nothing is a protective collapse. Your biology deciding that fewer feelings equals fewer dangers in the current conditions. Not a verdict on your worth, but a temporary mode the organism has entered to survive the load. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Protection doesn't discriminate. When you turn down one channel, you turn down them all. Strange, isn't it? When the shield goes up, it doesn't just soften pain, it flattens delight. You reach for a laugh, a taste, a touch, and it's like the volume knob that cut the siren also cut the song. Why would a system designed to keep you safe steal the very warmth that makes safety matter? Here's the hard truth. This is blunt force protection, not fine-tuned surgery. Your brain, under siege, cannot sort harmful from helpful with the precision you wish for. It trims the bandwidth. Less signal equals fewer hazards. That keeps you upright, but it also keeps you distant from the nectar you crave. Most people try to fight this with willpower. Gratitude lists, positive affirmations, plastered smiles. You push for liftoff and end up with the same flat horizon. Then blame yourself when the rocket doesn't leave the pad. Not failure, wrong tool. You can't force a muted speaker to sing by yelling at it. Let me put it to you this way. Sunglasses block glare on the highway, which is useful, but they also dull the sunset. The lens isn't malicious, it's indiscriminate. The same with this shield. Good at reducing the harshness, bad at honoring nuance. Relief arrives, but with a cost. The saturation drops out of the scene. Research observes this across conditions like depression and post-traumatic stress. Emotional blunting reduces reactivity to positive cues. The dial that lowers distress also lowers joy. Meanwhile, chronic hypervigilance pulls attention toward possible danger, crowding out reward processing. The system invests in scanning the horizon, so it forgets the food at your table. Safety first, everything else later, or never. Another analogy clarifies the paradox. A smoke detector set to hypersensitive goes off for toast. After enough false alarms, you pull the battery. Peace returns, but now the detector won't warn you about an actual fire, and it certainly won't celebrate a warm kitchen. That is the trade. Fewer alarms, fewer signals of any kind. Trauma narrows the range even further. You may notice a flatness in face and voice, a slide into avolition. The energy to start things goes missing. Interoception dulls. It's hard to name what's happening inside. Then social ties thin because the signals you send and receive are faint, and isolation loops back to confirm the numbness. Not a character flaw, a system effect. So if joy can't get through, what can? Signals of certainty, simplicity, safety. The brain favors what reduces risk with minimal computation. Predictable routines, familiar spaces, low-intensity inputs. It will pick a blank wall over a dazzling mural if the mural asks it to process too much. That's the payoff. Protection at the level of the nervous system is global, not surgical. Numbness isn't punishing you. It's prioritizing certainty over nuance, even when nuance is where sweetness lives. Let me put it to you this way. If the breaker tripped to save the house, how do you safely bring the lights back on? What if the way back isn't ripping off armor, but teaching it to stand down, one safe signal at a time? You don't force the gate. You show it that traffic is gentle. Then it opens by habit. The ego wants a grand finale now. The body prefers a quiet rehearsal, repeated until confidence returns. Here's what happens. Graded re-engagement works because your nervous system calibrates through cues, not declarations. You start with foundations that lower the overall threat load, sleep that actually restores, nourishment that steadies blood sugar and mood, movement that is rhythmic rather than punishing, and mindful attention that notices without arguing. These are not lifestyle tips. They are levers that tell the organism we are not in a fire. Most people want a dramatic fix, a single retreat, a breakthrough session, a heroic morning routine. But learning happens in small loops. The system trusts repetition more than promise. 10 minutes of consistent practice beats a single glorious hour that you never repeat. Boring is persuasive to the body. Let me put it to you this way. Think of an old radio with a dial. You don't smash the casing when you hear static. You make tiny adjustments until the hissing softens and a voice emerges. Each micro-turn is a vote for clarity. Breath practice does this with physiology. Slow inhales and longer exhales
nudge the threat circuitry to stand down. Mindfulness and yoga add another turn of the dial. Awareness of sensation without needing to fix it builds tolerance, so sensation stops reading as danger.
Somatic awareness is the simple art of saying, "There's tightness here," and letting the tightness exist for 2 extra breaths. No story, no diagnosis, just presence. Over time, the body learns that sensation rises and falls on its own. That lesson is the antidote to reflexive shutdown. You can also borrow emotion at safe distances. Art, music, a well-told story. Vicarious practice lets you feel on training wheels. You listen to a piece that swells, notice a single goosebump, then exit, dipping a toe before swimming. The point is not to hunt catharsis, but to reacquaint the system with the fact that rise and fall is survivable. Therapeutic work fits this graded arc. Trauma-focused CBT and EMDR are frontline treatments for post-traumatic stress. They help process stuck material in controlled steps, so numbing has less work to do. ACT and CBT can rebuild flexible responding, making room for what you feel while moving toward what matters. And if medication is contributing to blunting, you and your prescriber can adjust the plan so the chemistry supports rather than flattens your range. When do these practices stop being chores and start feeling like life again? The moment sensation registers as safe enough. First, it's a faint note, the warmth of a cup in your hands, the soft lift after a walk, then a phrase, then one morning, melody. That is proof the mechanism is unwinding, not that you failed. Another thing the awake person sees is that the shield is not the self, it's a setting, and settings can be changed.